You're listening to Business Stories with Ryan R. Karachi, a podcast dedicated to helping entrepreneurs become even more successful. Let's jump into today's episode. Okay, hey everybody, welcome to the Business Stories podcast. It's been a while since I've brought on an episode. Today I'm pretty excited because this episode covers something that I feel is really important. When I was a kid, I honestly never really learned how to cook. And my mom never really taught me, and I didn't have any, aunts or uncles or anybody that really showed me how to cook. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I'm talking to Leigh Feldman, who is the CEO of Youth Franchise Brands. And they have brands like Young Chefs Academy and Flower Power. And we're going to talk all about those brands and what they mean, what they do, and what they're all about. So, Leigh, thanks for joining me here. And I want to hear all about you and your background. And of course, let's talk about what you've been doing with the youth franchise concepts.
Awesome. Well, first off, thank you for having me. And I will say, as somebody who did have a mother and father try to teach them how to cook, my wife tells me that I still cook like I'm in college. Anytime I'm in charge of making dinner, she goes, "Let me guess, peanut butter noodles or enchiladas. Which one are we having?" And I say, I tricked you. I made scrambled eggs. So,
Oh, wow.
even when you are taught how to be a chef at a young age, it does not mean you will be one later on in life. But certainly our
Yeah.
goals with both brands, Young Chefs Academy and Flower Power Cooking Studios, is to empower kids to be able to take care of themselves and hopefully one day a partner, hopefully one day a family, by learning how to navigate their home kitchen, by coming to our location and our classes and all of the things that we do to really learn those skills from our instructors.
So let's talk about what kind of inspired this idea to really get kids more involved with cooking and build this brand around that. What was the catalyst for this?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to say it's because, somebody saw me cook and said, we cannot allow people to become adults and continue to cook like this. We need to actually teach them. But I believe it's
Yeah.
somewhat of a similar story. The founder for Young Chefs Academy 22 years ago realized that her children needed to learn how to take care of themselves and, again, have the confidence to navigate a home kitchen. And so
Yeah.
she started teaching cooking classes out of her home and then quickly found a space as she realized that she could expand her services from individual classes, small group classes, to birthday parties, to events, to workshops that invited kids and families to come in and do special skills, special themes, work on certain things. And over those 22 years, it certainly has grown into quite a monster, quite a beast of having 35 locations for Young Chefs Academy, 15 locations for Flower Power Cooking Studios, 28 states, and really servicing thousands of children and teaching them the joy of cooking, expanding the things that they enjoy testing, tasting, eating, and realizing that, what's on your plate really does matter, especially when you talk about healthy eating, food
Yeah.
planning, meal prep. So it certainly started with the idea of how do I teach my children how to cook, and quickly expanded to how do I teach children and families how to cook.
And I think this, cooking with kids, it kind of develops skills even outside of the kitchen, right? So can you talk about how this is a developmental experience for kids? It's not just about cooking, but there's more to it than that. Can you share a little bit of your thoughts on that?
Oh, 100,000%. I think that's what I enjoy more so than the actual cooking aspect. And yes, we teach kids how to cook. They are real certifiable skills. We've had kids win MasterChef Junior. The cooking skills are there, but it's
Yeah.
so much more than that. You're talking about development, stages of development, and specific learning models. It's hands-on, tactile learning. It's screen-free. It's AI enhanced versus being under the threat of AI, which I know some people talk about related to learning trades and learning real hands-on skills. But the learning that you sort of referenced is because kids come and they need to find a space where they feel welcome, where they can have those social connections, where they can create community connections. It is STEM based learning. There is science, there is math, there is measuring, there are weights, there are times when it comes to preparing a recipe correctly. And then for the older kids, certainly the entrepreneurial aspect of sort of meal prep, meal planning, budgeting, couponing.
Yep.
Again, really to take care of themselves and a partner. And that's the
Yeah.
part that makes it so fun is it's not just learning how to cook, it's really learning how to take care of yourself and again one day a partner, but really
Yep.
knowing that when a child leaves Young Chefs, they are good, they can go out into the world and they can, at least at the very basics, make what I'm making and have enchiladas or have peanut butter noodles or scrambled eggs and say, okay, I'm at least safe. I can have a meal today.
Yeah. In Young Chefs Academy, they learn skills and they advance. I mean, I don't want to say it's like the Boy Scouts, but they do get patches and they have a coat and things. Can you talk about like the stages of advancement and what they have to do
Yeah,
to achieve those things?
you nailed it. It is like the Boy Scouts or Scouts of America or Girl Scouts of America. We often tell people it's a lot like karate or taekwondo in the sense that when you become a member at Young Chefs, you start off as a white chef jacket. And over time, when you test for the curriculum that you have learned and, pun intended, digested, you earn your patches and stripes, and you eventually test to become a black jacket chef. That is an executive level chef. And in show states where it is skill based learning and skill based showing that you've learned concepts, you're really able to go to a culinary school as a trade or technical school and sort of graduate out of those even faster because you have the skill based and show based credits having learned those skills at Young Chefs Academy. We
Mm.
sort of say it's a lot like if you show up to Spanish 101 and your name might be, Miguel Fernandez, and the teacher sees your name and says, my apologies, for making some assumptions based on your name, but by any chance, do you speak Spanish? And they say, of course, Spanish was the language in my home. It's my first
Yeah,
language. They'd say, well, why are you in Spanish 101? This must be a mistake. You should be in Spanish 304. You should be in business Spanish,
yeah,
philosophy in Spanish. You should graduate out of this class early. And we're
yeah,
happy that in skill and show-based learning states that students that leave Young Chefs Academy, they're graduating at a minimum out of cohort 1 faster than anyone else and oftentimes get to skip cohort 2 because they already have the skills that we taught in our classroom.
right, right. Do you see kids craving that tactile environment and more of a creative environment? I mean, do they seem more excited and happier to be away from the screens or in front of a computer in these environments?
Absolutely. And I think it's that yearning of connectivity. I think the
Yeah,
tactile piece of having the ability to touch and play, have that sensory experience is very important for children as they develop. I think there's a lot of that that is needed. And we are a place for sometimes kids that sports is not their thing, being
yeah,
outside is not their thing, but they
yeah,
still crave that social connection. And so they find their place and they find their friends at Young Chefs Academy. And, I have made this mistake myself. I have three boys and then a girl. I have seen parents walk in and they say, oh, this is our oldest Trevor. He's our all star baseball player. And this is his sister Rebecca. She's our swimmer and volleyball player. Oh, and yes, sorry, this is Christopher. He's our creative child. And we came here today because we're looking for something for Christopher to do. And this
yeah,
becomes Christopher's sport. There
yeah,
are some elements of competition that can be introduced in some of the programming that we have. And sometimes you see a child like Christopher lean into it heavily, and
yeah,
sometimes they might shy away because they say, this isn't my thing. But no
right,
matter what they're learning as far as the skills to be able to go home and show family, hey, this is what I can do. That is the value. Because again, yes, we teach skills, but what we really teach is confidence. We're teaching
yeah,
that positive self esteem so that every child knows they have a place, not just within their family, but really in life. And that again,
yeah,
maybe they're not the star on the baseball field, but when it comes to being in the kitchen, they can really shine.
yeah, yeah. Let's shift into like flower power. How is flower power different from Young Chefs? I know they're different brands and they sort of have a different, I guess, energy about them. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Flower Power is much more focused on the tactile experience, whereas Young Chefs is very much focused on the skills. Flower Power relies heavily on sort of the showmanship or showwomanship, if you will, of what's going on in the classroom. There's a lot of
Yeah,
focus and emphasis on all day summer camp, a lot of focus and emphasis on birthday parties and gatherings for Scouts of America or Girl Scouts, as you referenced. But a
yeah,
lot of it is really about the tactile experience, the look, the sense, the feel, the smell, the taste, and really getting all of those senses involved much more so than Young Chefs, where again, Young Chefs is focusing on the skills and the development. Young Chefs
yeah,
will teach you tip drag cut versus guided cut versus brunoise versus chiffonade versus mince versus dice in a real certified sharp chef knife program. Whereas
mhm,
Flower Power is going to talk about what spice do you smell in this? How can we bring that to life more? Should we add this? Should we remove this? Is this something that complements it? Is this an emulsification? What are the things that go behind sort of the science of the taste, touch, and smell of the food that you're eating?
Yep. And what sort of, so when we look at Young Chefs and Flower Power, they offer different kinds of, I guess, camps and classes. Can you talk about what's available to parents for their kids in the territories you're in?
Yeah, generally speaking, I'll say that classes are between 60 to 90 minutes, depending upon the age and skill level in which your child is. Young Chefs offers 60-minute classes for what we call kinder cooks, children between the ages of 3 and 6, and then 90-minute classes for junior chefs, senior chefs, and teens, which would be 7 to 10, 11 to 13, and then 13 or 14 to 17. Whereas Flower Power can offer 75 or 90-minute classes, again, based kind of on the skill level, attention capabilities of the children, and sort of what the parents are looking for as far as continuing education.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I want to ask too is how does this kind of teach a better relationship with food? I think, like, we think about parents oftentimes, it's they need a quick solution. They go get fast food, and oftentimes there's just poor diet. I think I'm kind of curious about how does this teach kids about the importance of nutrition and diet and also the parents too? Do you feel like
Yeah,
that carries over in some way?
Yeah, great question. For both programs, we really emphasize sort of what is going into your body and what is
Yeah.
on your plate. We talk about sort of substitutes. We talk about sugar. We talk about portion control. We talk about daily vitamin intake and
Hmm.
nutrition when it comes to what is recommended from the USDA. This is full body health in the sense that you are mentally thinking about what you're preparing. You're sort of financially thinking about what can I afford with the budget that I have,
Yeah.
where do I have more wiggle room to create better and healthier eating habits? And then the physical aspect of actually consuming what's on your plate after you've made it. And we do talk a bit about portion control related to not just eating everything, especially if it comes to sweets. That's where a
Hmm.
lot of the education regarding sugar and replacements and what you are consuming really comes into play.
Yeah. Is there any misconceptions for adults and children cooking? I mean, do you feel like, did you ever get pushback or do people feel apprehensive about, like, oh, there's fire and there's knives and there's utensils and things? I mean, is there any concern with parents worried about safety or whether or not the kids can really handle this?
No, I mean, we do so much to teach and train regarding the safety of children, especially related to any stovetop cooking,
Yeah.
heated elements, or knives being introduced. Even to
Yeah.
have a knife that is not a practical safety knife, where anyone and everyone would wear a safety glove, you'd need to
Yeah.
complete the Sharp Chef knife programming to be certified to be able to have access to even a real knife. Otherwise, you're using plastic practice knives with a
Yeah.
guide and safety glove as well. The hesitation that I think you see around sort of parents is one related to what I just discussed with the food that we put in our body. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of, I don't want to say taboo, but there's a lot of fear of even discussing what do processed foods and sugar especially look like as an impact on my health, my diet, and what I'm providing my children as a parent. I think the
Yeah.
other thing, not necessarily a taboo or pushback on, is that you sometimes get parents that make assumptions about what their kids will even try. They'll say, nah,
Yeah.
my child's a picky eater. No way would they ever eat cucumbers. And they come to see what we've made, learn about what we've created, and taste what we've made at the end of class. And they're always shocked and go, wait, did you just take a bite of that? No way. Oh my goodness. And I think that's some of the
Yeah.
biggest joys that I see witnessing classes. And I know our locations do as well, is when a child is willing to try something that maybe they were opposed to trying before, but because they made that recipe, they saw the process of how that food was created, they're curious to just sample, try, see if it's something they like. And even if they say, oh, this isn't for me, that gives opportunity to have a discussion of, well, what would make it appealing? Should we just cover it in ketchup or ranch dressing? What would make it
Yeah.
interesting? Do we just dip it in chocolate? Would that make you eat that food? Of course, we're not doing that in the class, but if we can talk about introducing healthy food, recipe by recipe, meal by meal, step by step, we feel that we're making movement and progress towards better and healthier eating habits.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I love that. So, we want to talk about franchise growth too. I mean, you guys have gone pretty rapid in terms of your growth, and things are going well. What have you learned about this particular brand? I feel like it's a very niche brand. It's not a restaurant. It's a very interesting concept. What have you learned about the growth so far and what you're seeing, Lee?
Yeah, it is interesting. It is definitely at the intersection of food and child activities. It
Yeah.
is education, it is youth enrichment. For us, when it comes to growth, it's really about partnering with the right operators. I jokingly and not jokingly say we look for people that love their community, like food, and tolerate children.
Yeah.
Obviously, I would love for that to be reversed. But when it
Right.
comes to the success of an operator, that self-awareness of who you are, what you provide, what connections you have in your market are really valuable. I mean, at the end of
Yeah.
the day, this is a business. It is a franchise or franchisee relationship. So we certainly have some people that get into this because they know food, because they know business, they understand the margins. Maybe they worked in restaurants before, maybe they worked with kids before, or maybe they're just business minded folks and they see
Yeah.
our margins and say, I can squeeze more out of that. That might be true. But what we ultimately look for at the end of the day is that people that really want to focus on an experience. This is a people business. There is a human element to this as you work with kids, work with families, work with your community. And if you are not the magnetic personality that will be front and center, working with the kids, working with the families, creating reputation and relationship in your market, you certainly need to be somebody that can attract that type of personality. Because again, at the end of the day, this is about providing a remarkable experience so that people will recommend and refer other families and kids and adults to those locations. So it's really important for us to find those people that, again, love community, like food, and tolerate children.
Yeah. What would you say to parents who generally, when they think about a birthday party or a special event for their child, and they go, "Oh, we'll just take them to Chuck E. Cheese or whatever you want to call it, party zone, whatever it is, right?" Like, why do you think this is better or different or a different experience in those cases? Why should someone choose a Flower Power or a Young Chefs over one of those types of experiences?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say that it's better in the sense of it obviously depends on the children, their friends, what activity they want, how involved do
Right.
the parents want to be. I mean, there is a time and a place for everything, but I think there's a real opportunity to bring a group of children together to really learn skills, practice making food,
Yeah.
enjoy decorating the meals that they've created, learn plating, understand the science and math behind those things. I mean, cooking at the end of the day is magic. We talk about yeast activation and the things to wake it up. If you are a child that is interested in sort of the storytelling behind food and the skills that you learn, Young Chefs and Flower Power for parties, as far as entertainment goes, it's phenomenal. But, we don't have skee ball. We don't have electronic
Yeah.
mice that play in a band. So,
Yeah.
there certainly is something to be said about the entertainment factor for some of those other things.
I just think it's great because I think, cooking is a skill you can bring into adulthood. And if you think about it the way the world is, I think it's just better to cook at home and having that skill to share with your family and pass on. Like my wife's like an amazing cook and she learned from her grandparents and parents. And I didn't have that, but because she had it, I think that's special. And I think it's something she kind of carries over into our family. So do you feel like parents benefit from this just as well as the kids do? Do you feel like everybody kind of learns from this in some way?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, your story that you just shared is very similar to my wife's. She is a
Yeah.
baker, she is a teacher. I
Yeah.
love that our third boy was watching her make something and said, wait a minute, we're going to put this blended up with water and all these other things into a
Yeah.
cupcake pan. And then we're going to heat it up in this thing in our kitchen that's a box that gets hot. And all of a sudden, we're going to have muffins.
Yeah.
What? This is mind boggling. And I think that
Right.
sort of spark of interest and joy of what you're making really ignites that passion in children. And then obviously helps the parents. That gets the kids excited about food. It gets them to feel a sense of responsibility and have a role within the kitchen. To answer your question, one of the most impactful things I heard was from a mother in one of our Atlanta locations. They come to class on Tuesday. She said after they go to religious services on Sunday, they go grocery shopping as a family to pick out the items from the recipe that their son practiced on Tuesday. Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, they make it together. He discusses the dish, he presents the dish, they all eat together, then they clean. She puts him to bed and he says, 2 more sleeps until cooking class. And I thought that was the
Wow.
most amazing thing
Yeah.
I have heard. I've talked to a lot of parents, a lot of families, a lot of kids. That one has definitely stayed with me, especially related to your question of, is there an impact for the family for kids taking these classes?
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that food in general, I think culturally, no matter what where you're from or, you know, even what country you're from, food generally brings people together. And I think having kids able to cook, I think it just brings the family together. It keeps people tighter, it keeps people closer to each other. And I think it's a great thing. So are there any stories or students that stick out to you where kids have really excelled or anything special that you can share in terms of a story?
Oh, I mean, certainly our children that have competed on TV programs. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to separate them from our other students. Not
Yeah.
everyone needs to pursue culinary arts, and not everyone needs to feel comfortable on TV. But
Yeah.
watching some of those children operate in a kitchen, it's like watching LeBron James play basketball or Messi play soccer. You
Yeah.
just see they possess a different skill. Again,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean everyone needs to become a chef. It doesn't mean everyone needs to become an executive level chef at a Michelin star restaurant. But
Right.
watching children who immediately take to this and say, this is my thing, and they dedicate the time to practice the skills that we teach to come back to show that they have mastered these skills, those children certainly are unique and special, within the framework that we have. Again, not
Yeah.
everyone is going to be a chef, but we certainly want to expose everyone to be excited about potentially cooking.
What do you feel is like one kitchen skill that would be really essential, whether they're with a class or not, just kids in general? What do you think is one important skill every kid should learn in the kitchen? Period.
I'm going to answer this as my wife. She's going to say cleaning. But I
Yeah.
certainly think, washing hands, disinfecting,
Yeah.
understanding porous versus non-porous surfaces, the
Yeah.
types of things that we use to clean to make sure that you are truly healthy when
Yeah.
we talk about cooking and preparing food. I certainly think that is the foundation number one.
Yeah.
You talk about stories. I loved a child that I met in Philadelphia recently who said, it's really important to wash your hands if you're a chef. It's also really important if you're just 9. He's 9 years old. I think
Yeah.
that applies if you're 10, 11, or 45 like myself. I think it's
Any
just
age.
important to remember to wash your hands. And I love
Right.
that. And those are the things that I think stick with those children. Again, pun intended, he has digested that information. He will know that before he starts cooking, he should wash his hands. He will know that if he is touching eggs or chicken or any raw meats, that he should wash his hands. Because again,
Yeah.
it's important here if you're a chef and also, if you're any age in the world.
It's funny that even though these are not really always cooking related skills, but they carry on everywhere. I mean, washing your hands is, of course, important anywhere you go, any age you are.
Yes.
I think it's especially important if you're, of course, handling food, but I think in general, it's a good skill to have. But I think, there's also with what you guys do, there's teamwork, there's listening, which I always had trouble with. and, uh, and like for me, I mean, when I look at a recipe or I try to follow a recipe, my mind just, I don't have the patience to like weigh everything. So I really have to push myself to try to cook because my brain just wants to just jump away from it and do something else. I
But
don't have
that's
the,
where some of the best things can happen. We talk
yeah,
about some of the recipes that literally were invented kind of under the guides of what you're saying, where
yeah,
creative thought matters. I
yeah,
don't want to measure. I don't want to be precise. I'm going to put a little of this, a little of that. Maybe I add this
yeah,
in. And we talk about that related to the meals that we create,
right,
saying, would you add more of this? Would you do less of this? Would you follow the recipe exactly? What
right,
would you add in that wasn't in the recipe? What would you remove from the recipe that you did not like? How would you replace it? Because that creative thought does matter, especially when you're talking about creating something in the kitchen. The recipe may need to be exact if you want exactly what the recipe is making, but there
yeah,
is certainly a lot of opportunity to create, especially when you give children the sense of wonder and they start throwing in other ingredients, other things that they love that they wish
yep,
were incorporated. And when they can pair those things together, it's incredible. Oh, I love this sauce, but I don't know if I'd put it on this. You know what I would put it on is this. And they go
yeah,
home and they create that and make them themselves. Or, ooh, my mom likes spicy stuff. Maybe I'll add fill in the blank to bring out an additional flavor.
right.
Those are the things that I love. And when you talk about kind of the lesson we want children to learn, I think we want just this. We want them to understand that The recipe is a guideline. It is bumper rules. You do not have
Yeah.
to follow it exactly if you want to have a potentially different outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I mean, my wife, and maybe your wife too, but my wife, she can make something from anything. I mean, we could have no food in the house and she'd figure out how to make something from anything, which I'm blown away by because I'm the exact opposite. I would not know what to do if I if I had nothing to. I'd be like, all right, let's just order something. So I think that's a great skill to have. I think into adulthood too. I mean, no matter what age you are, what financial level, you've got to eat. And I think it's costly no matter what to go out to eat all the time. And cooking at home,
Hmm.
at least you know what you're cooking, you know what you're putting in your body, you know the ingredients, and you know who's handling it. So I feel like, eating at home is always your safer bet in terms of nutrition and things being sanitary. Um, but I love that. I love that idea that kids can have that empowerment around food and cooking. That's great.
Yeah, that relationship to the skill and to food in general, I think is so important to establish at any age. And
Yeah.
that's the thing is it's never too late to learn how to cook. It's
Yeah.
never too late to learn new skills and, sort of add a new tool to your tool belt. You
Yep.
get parents that watch what kids do and say, wait a minute, I want to learn that as well. That is why we have family workshops. It's why we have events. It's why we have camps. It's why we have classes. There's
Yeah.
always more to learn, more to create, and more to cook.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we kind of wrap this up, Lee, and I appreciate the conversation, there's two ways people may have interest with this. One may be, enrolling their kid in a class or at a school. And also there may be some people out there listening who are interested in investing in the brand. So can you talk about the process for both and how people can reach out and what the process is to get going with this?
Well, I love that you left out that people might reach out to me wanting my enchiladas or peanut butter noodles. So,
Well, yeah, if you
if
want, yeah.
anybody would like me to cook for them like I'm still in college, I'm happy to
Yeah.
do so. They can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Leigh, Leigh, Feldman, like the actor Corey for anyone of a certain decade.
Yeah.
But that is F as in Frank, Eldman. And they should look up Young Chefs Academy and they should look up Flour Power Cooking Studios. Of course, flour, Flour, like
Mhm.
baking flour as opposed
Yeah.
to the plants.
Okay. Great. Well, this has been great, Lee. I really appreciate it. I love all that you're doing, and I'm glad we get to work together. And if you're out there listening and you're interested in this brand, whether to enroll your child into it or looking into it as a business opportunity for yourself, look up Lee, look up Flower Power or Young Chefs Academy. And thank you again, Lee. I'll let you get back to your day. I know it's Friday, and I'm sure you've got a weekend with the kids ahead of you, so I'll let you go.
Fortunately slash unfortunately, I do. I can't thank you enough for letting me come on. This has been phenomenal. Thanks so much. And I certainly owe you some enchiladas.
Yes, please. All right. Thanks, Lee. Bye bye.
Thanks, Ryan. Bye.
Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. If you want to learn more, you can go to ryanarkarachi.com. And if you know someone who wants to sponsor an episode, have them reach out. Thanks again.